Welcome to the Innovative Mind at Work podcast. My name is Dr. Tanya Knudsen, and I am your host. In this podcast, we're weaving business with creative processes for a new kind of leadership, one that's focused on innovation. This show is about creative leadership. Here, we learn to lean in and lead with a skill set and a mindset for catalyzing change. Let's begin. Welcome to episode 2. Kent, it's great to be here with you again tonight. We're only at the very beginning of this, but it's so exciting that we're doing this together. Thank you for joining us.
Tanya, I'm just excited to be on the journey. This has been great. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to participate.
It's cool. And our conversations offline are, again, so rich in our work together that we decided we needed to really share this information with other people, business owners, business leaders, family members, because to think differently really is to have a different outcome. And that's really what we're here to do. Today, what I really want to do is dive more in.
So I can regurgitate what I've learned. And that really is the doctor starts asking a bunch of questions. And what's your pain level? Where does it hurt? How long does it hurt? Where does it hurt the most? And what's it keep you from doing? Can you sleep? Can you not walk? Can you not run? And so the doctor doesn't make a diagnosis until he gathers all this information. And that's what I've learned. What is the impact, or what is helpful in my business is to gather this information before I run to the symptom and solve the symptom or think I'm going to solve the symptom, to gather all the information and to have all the who, what, where's, why's, and eventually how's, or when's and then how's, has been a great tool to help us to bring the best out of all of the colleagues and myself.
Right. So it's the starting point for where we begin in our process for creative problem solving, which is what the focus is of this podcast, as we weave that into and through an organization, a business environment. So tonight what we're going to do is really unpack that a little bit more. We're going to focus on why. And specifically, I like to emphasize a compelling why, because why is not strong enough. We need the extra boost of a compelling why. A compelling why really tells us I cannot not do this. I have to do this. And I want to focus on this because when we started working together and in our conversations offline, I really wanted to get to and share with the listeners, why are we doing this? And that really got back to why you came to me and why we started working together, because it was a challenge for you, right? And so what is your compelling why for doing this?
So the compelling why for me is very easy because it was so compelling. I could not do it. In last year, I sold one of our businesses to a new group of owners, and very glad I did, and look forward to the future. But it was a new team, and how I felt after we got started, they were new to the industry, so it was a lot of domain knowledge that was new to them. But I felt like we got off track. We didn't really get the start that we needed out of the gate. So I felt the team and heard the team start to voice concerns and become fearful. And so I needed to and I was compelled to address this with the new owners, and so my why was, look, this is our business, and again in our first podcast we talked about, this business is a family disguised as a business.
You said, I'm going to go in and tell them, look, we got a problem. Do you remember?
I do.
Okay.
And that's my way of going to the symptom. We got a problem. I'm going to solve it.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
And it was at that point you said, we got a problem. I'm just going to go in there. I'm going to tell them, guys, we got a problem. A problem of not having enough expertise, not having enough experience in the business. Maybe there's the risk of attrition as a result, right? Some things like that. And at that juncture, do you remember what was the offer that I gave you at the time? That's what we want to talk about tonight. It's a little 4-letter acronym.
Well, let's see here. What is it? It's No, I don't remember the
You don't
four-letter
remember.
acronym.
So
But I do remember the word of caution. Hold on there.
Yes, exactly right.
Yes.
Well, so what happens when you say, we got a problem? Well, already you're putting somebody on the defensive, and it's kind of finger pointing. And that is why I wanted to offer something at that juncture. So the why here is to really step back and say, well, hang on a second. Before I start pointing my finger and basically saying, we got a problem, buddies, you need to get something together here. Why don't we step back and reframe the entry point to the conversation and do that in a way that follows a pattern, which is first starting with what's good. Guys, I'm really glad that you're here.
So I think maybe the acronym was PPCO.
PPCO, we use it all the time.
And so you use it all the time. It was a new technique to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, now I recall.
Uh-huh.
And so I even more vividly recall the outcome of that conversation. But what I really liked about the PPCO, which stands for pluses, potential, concerns, and
overcoming concerns.
And then overcoming.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's just back it up. So rather than say, guys, we have a problem, the way in was, guys, I'm really glad you guys are here. New leadership, new energy. You're bringing in this technology, AI, and the trajectory for that is significant. That's actually a plus and a potential right there. So in that example, what you're doing when you come into a conversation that way is, well, you're leaning in, you're accepting the offer that you have a problem, and that's okay. I'm going to accept that. I'm going to be responsive and say, well, there's something good here, so I'm not going to reject. And then I'm going to do another round of divergent thinking, meaning exploratory thinking, what might be, and saying, well, where could all of this lead with this new leadership, with this new generation in this business?
Well, so I remember the exercise, and so I remember going through all the pluses, and what I really liked about that was we started from a very positive perspective as we looked at all the pluses. And as we listed out all these pluses, they were numerous. And then what we did is we created what we called, I think maybe you called it a hit list, but we defined those in similar buckets, if you will, and then talked about the potentials. What are the potentials from all of these pluses? Exactly. What are the potentials?
Where could it go?
And then it'd be great if we could just lay it out in front of our listeners, because really the exercise has structure, and that structure really brings clarity to the event. But when you laid out all the pluses and then you categorized them by similar types, and then you took the potentials and you categorized them by type, what became very, very evident was the pluses were significantly the people. What the people could bring, what the team, the colleagues together could bring, that was definitely the pluses. And then what we saw when we stepped back after we did the exercise, we saw the potentials were in new technologies, AI, expansion of different markets, but really technical softwares, AI, the growth of that side of the industry, which is changing rapidly right now. And so we saw all those potentials in there. And then we also identified the concerns.
What happens when you talk about the pluses and the potentials? What's really going on is you're diverging, you're going in lots of different directions twice, 2 rounds. When you do that, and certainly when you're thinking about the potential, you're thinking about the future, right? And when you're doing that, you're really putting that listener and that group of people talking into a future state. You're really creating some visioning, like, wow, if this is a success, we could really land in this other new place. So now I'm in a place of like, ooh, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. So I'm excited. And now I'm thinking about where I might be in the future, not where I am now. Then we come in with our concerns. Our concerns come in as a third step, and this is deliberate. Normally we'd start with the beginning. This is a problem. But what we're doing instead is we're coming in with a concern as the third sort of round of conversation once we're in that future state. So when I'm in this future state now with all of this goodness around me, all of this positivity, then the concerns will come up. And in your instance, I remember what they were. You talked about attrition. That was one.
That's correct.
And then the family becoming a little undone.
Yep. Fear.
Maybe people would leave the company.
Correct.
And as a result, the family comes a little bit undone.
Yep.
So, and I remember when you had that conversation with your company, somebody took off that little sticky note about attrition and said, "This is important," right?
Yep, that's correct.
Right.
Yep.
So, and what happens when we proceed through thinking this way is we're in this sort of desired future state, and now the concern is more clear because we can see the potential is really great. So that's the approach effectively. And then the fourth piece is overcoming the concern. Remember?
I do. Yep. And I think in this meeting, for the sake of clarification, this meeting, that's our first PPCO exercise, was because, again, I felt compelled to address this before I felt like it got worse. And so in the manner in which we addressed it, when we looked at all the pluses, they were numerous. And when we looked at the potential, what we realized was we were already going down that road. We were already headed there. And it really was accolades to the efforts that the new buyers had already implemented and started. And so we could firmly get behind that. What we saw in the concerns was that it hadn't been fully addressed, fully expressed to the team, really around them, and so the team was unclear and fearful, and an attrition was beginning to happen, and so if we didn't address some of those concerns, maybe we wouldn't survive to see the potentials. But again, what came out of that was so powerful. Actually, I'll tell you how that meeting ended up. It was kind of a closed meeting, myself and the two new owners and the controller. And as we talked about those, and they stood and they listened, one of them finally at the end said, "Wow, this is powerful. It's about the people, isn't it? It's about the people." And that was what it was about. If we lost the people, or we took away the potential of all those people, we left them behind in our hurry to recreate or to change the trajectory of the company. If we left those people behind, it was about the people. And what was great about that is that actually was my concern. It was the people. When I felt compelled to address the whys, it was the people. It was the fear that attrition. It was the fear that the people were getting left behind or forgotten or marginalized in a way that was hurting our ability to be a team, to be a family.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think, I mean, we talked about you going in there and saying, okay, we got a problem, okay. I wonder, how do you think it would have gone if you said, you guys, people might leave? I mean, if you came in a meeting, which is real, but you came to that conclusion after you kind of looked at what are all these goodies on the table that we might have before we get to the people leaving. I mean, what do you think might have happened if you said, guys, we're at risk of losing people, as an opening statement?
We wouldn't have gotten to address all of the pluses that the company really had on the table already, and recognize those, and recognize the value of those. Nor would we have talked about the potentials, which was really affirmation of the direction we were already going, because it was great. When you looked at it, said, look, these are all the potentials, and they were a divergent,
that was the future.
Yeah, and they were a divergent group of potentials, but identifying those potentials then said, look, there is no fear for us going forward. There is a concern that we're going to lose these people, but when we look at the pluses and we look at the potential, there was no fear in the leadership that this wasn't worth pursuing. There was no thought that, oh, well, this is a lost cause. We might as well just put the closed sign on the door now. That wasn't even a conversation. When we looked at it, we said, the pluses are so phenomenal. The potentials are clearly outlined. Oh, we got these small concerns. How do we address them?
Well, they're not
we
small.
immediately had avenues then to talk about of how to address. Well, I say small, catastrophic, but manageable. Manageable if you identify them. Mm-hmm. But if you don't identify them as concerns, had I shut down, oh, let's see what happens. I have no care and I have no concerns. No, I was compelled to speak up. Through this process, we identified the concerns, but we did it with this understanding of, look at the upside, look at the potentials here, look at what we've already covered, look at the base that's already established. So there was no fear, really, from this group moving forward. How do we solve the challenges in front of us, the concerns in front of us? They weren't daunting. They weren't, and it didn't take any finger pointing because we realized we were all on the same team.
Yes, and I think then the question was, well, how might we make sure that we have people stay? How might we go through this leadership transition that is successful in and of itself and retain the staff that we value, because talent is also not as readily available as we might think, right? So, so that became then compelling, I think, for the new leaders to realize when your man said, oh, it's about the people. In that moment, he had the aha. He had the aha. And that's really what it's about. It's for that light to go on and that resonance to happen, as you said, the last time, that there's a horizontalness to all of this, that the leadership and the insights and the perceptions come from across the group, not from one person telling, hey, we got a problem.
So I got a great story.
I
got to interject this story. So it's something I haven't really talked about too much, but the follow-up, maybe a day later, 2 days later, I invited one of the new owners to come out, and he's a smart guy. There's no question he's a smart guy. But I said, hey, let's do a shop tour. And I said, when we do this tour, don't look at the things that are right. Look at the things that seem odd, incongruent, things that seem misplaced, things that might be a safety concern. But when we do this tour of the shops, let's see the things that are wrong. So we're walking through the shop, and I see some things. I address a few issues, some safety issues in particular that trip. And then we went over to some of our sub-arc equipment, which is especially welding equipment stations. And I was concerned that we had some technical inconsistencies. We were doing a weld that had certain parameters in that weld, and I watched the welder, and some of the parameters weren't being held. So, I didn't address it with the welder, but I went to the shop foreman. But nevertheless, we did the shop tour, and we got done with the tour. And I said, well, what did you see? He looked at me, kind of big-eyed, and said, well, I don't understand any of it. It's all crazy to me. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to look at. It's all wrong. And so that was an aha moment for me, is that, yes, it's a horizontal team. It's a horizontal group. And there is a lot of talent there. But unless we harness it as a group, then it's lost. And so to him, he said, look, I'm drinking out of a fire hose right now. Like, this is all brand new, coming at me at 1,000,000 miles an hour. What I learned was that our team horizontally had a lot to share and had a lot of potential. Yes, it needed leadership. Yes, it needs management. But it had a lot of potential, a lot of energy, a lot of smart people. All we had to do was harness that. And that meant horizontal. That meant the people, right? So we were back to the same conclusion. Oh, It's about the people, isn't it? Yes, it's about the people in the shop. It's about the welders. It's about the fitters. It's about the grinders. It's about the project managers. It's about the engineers. It's about the people. And so, yeah, we ended up in the same spot, but we ended up with positive affirmation that we were going in the right direction, and didn't have to point fingers. But I think, to answer your question, had I said, guys, we got a problem, walked in with that attitude, yeah, it gets met with immediate hardness, with rejection, with, well, tell me why you think you're so smart. You know, that would be the response. That'd be a natural response. So just stepping back, having that discussion, and then entering the shop, doing a tour with them, and then hearing him just be so honest. Well, I don't know I don't even know what to look at. I don't know what's wrong or right. It's all coming at me so fast. That helped me understand, well, of course, they can't address the people. They don't know how to. Yeah.
You can use this tool in every situation. So what's good about this? Well, we have a new leader, and he's fresh. He's fresh meat, right? I mean, he's a guy. We want to know what this guy doesn't know. What questions do you have? What do you not understand? I mean, that's a beautiful place to learn. So what's the potential here? A new manual, a new way of speaking to each other, a new culture, a new way of introducing new people to the team. I mean, how might that all come about in a way that feels integrative? What are your concerns? Well, here's a guy who doesn't really know our business. Okay, how do we overcome that? So how might somebody ramp up? So we can use this tool all the time. I use it all the time, I will tell you. The lesson here really is, rather than to reject and rather than to be critical and come in with, we got a problem, we always want to lean in and we want to look at what's good. And then we want to look at, well, if this succeeds, where might it go? And then we come in with our concerns. I always say, if you want to be a good critical thinker, what that actually means is to be an excellent creative thinker, which means you explore first and then you decide secondarily. To use your word, secondarily. I know you use that word a lot. But that's really it. That's really, really it. I mean, with new leadership coming on, we have an opportunity to shape it.
Absolutely.
That's what's good.
And it
right?
was exciting.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah. And it was. And when it was exciting to even to myself when I looked at all the pluses, and then when I looked at all the potentials. Well, yeah, why would we quit? Why would we feel disjointed, or why would we feel hopeless or helpless? Because when I looked at all the pluses first and I looked at all the potentials, the concerns seemed very manageable.
That's exactly, and that's why that tool is designed the way it is. It looks like, wow, when I see all of the golden eggs, yeah, the concerns are really not as bad as if I lead with the concerns. The other thing that I want to say is that, you know, when we come in with things as a problem is seen as, you know, toxic, complicated, dead-ended, something to really tackle. Really, what we want to do, and what I'm bringing across here, creative leadership, is to really think of problems as challenges. Our mind naturally wants to solve problems. We are wired to seek and play. At the neural level, that is what we do. We are seeking or we are playing. And so what's the quality of that is really the question. And looking for answers or trying to solve something, we don't want to start with it as being problematic. We want to start with it as a challenge so that our mind can go to work. Just like when we go to bed with a question in our head, we wake up with an answer, right? It's because our mind does want to work for us. Rather than coming in with something as problematic, we want to come in as it's a challenge, accept the offer. What's good? What's the potential here? What are my concerns? 2 or 3, not more than that. And then how might I overcome those? Guys, what else do you think? What else could we do? What else could we do? And then we're diverging again all over again. When your man took that sticky off and said, oh, it's about the people, that was the moment where they had that behavioral shift. And we've talked about that. The energy is changing in your business because of the ways that we're thinking and acting differently. The quality of the interaction is changed such that we're focusing on the problem, not each other, with a process that leverages our imagination in an organized and structured way.
Yeah. And when we were able to identify this business is about the people, what we're able to do then is acknowledge it was the people, and then gather all that information, because you don't exclude the information that's on the left hand and the right hand. You bring it all together on a horizontal plane, and now you have synergies that help you build the company and keep it stable. If it wasn't about the people, we would have said, oh, it's all about the technology, and we would have forgot, hey, these people are fearful. We're going to have attrition. They're nervous. We're going to have attrition. But when we acknowledged it was about the people, and then we brought that talent horizontally into our own awareness, now it wasn't attrition. Now they felt
they're in.
They're in, yeah. They realize, look, we're part of this, right? And now we have more confidence in leadership because they heard us, because they realized it's about us. And when I have to tell you, we took a little field trip and went and looked at some of the bridges that we've built, and I realized even more so, it's about the people. I didn't build those bridges. I had a small hand in it. Mainly, I shook hands and kissed babies at some level, right? Like you do what you do as management of the company. But when I looked at the bridges and I looked at their center core to some of these cities, they're picturesque and their entrances into the old towns and into the hubs of these cities, and you look at what you did and you say, this is amazing. Guess what? It's the people. It's the welders, it's the grinders, it's the fitters, it's the truck drivers, it's the forklift drivers. It's this group of people that solved a bunch of challenges that now have landmarks erected around the state of Washington, around the state of California. And it's about the people. And ultimately, the PPCO, that's what it led us to. It was about the people.
So I would just add a little bit here as we wrap up. It is about the people. It's also about the process.
Definitely,
it's about process.
Definitely the process.
You have process, you have domain skills and domain expertise. Building a bridge has a process. The interaction and the problem-solving process is a universal process that can go across any domain, creative problem-solving. So people process creates a proficiency for innovation. Kent, thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks. The Innovative Mind at Work podcast is sponsored by Vision Music Live, your source for music lessons and live performances in downtown Kirkland, Washington. Thanks for listening. For more information, check out the innovativemindатwork.com. See you soon.